All right, welcome back to another episode of the Four Wide Podcast. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, Jonathan Williams, and Dan Kiley here with you again this week. Has been a pretty crazy day. We've seen some different things this week. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've noticed there's actually a couple blowout games, and there have been so many close games in the first 6 weeks of it. So we're going to review week 7. So far, the early game slate, we've gone through most of it. We've got a couple games to talk about that are going to happen tonight and tomorrow. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Fellas, what is a game that stood out to you? Jonathan, I'll start with you. The game that stood out to you today that, really caught your attention.
I mean, it's got to be the Carolina-Tampa Bay game, especially after this past week, what went on with Carolina. They ship off Christian McCaffrey out to San Francisco. They also got rid of Robbie Anderson, I believe, as well. And so it looks like that they're emptying shop, man. Like they're cleaning house. They're trying to reboot and get ready for a rebuild. And then they come into Sunday, excuse me, and they beat Tampa Bay 21-3. Tampa Bay's the favorite easily in the NFC South right now. Falcons are kind of Saints are kind of and Carolina's supposed to be absolute doo-doo right now. And Tampa Bay can't even score a touchdown right now. And this is why this is such my big game. It's not the fact that Carolina pulled off the upset and didn't let them score a touchdown. They only got 3 points. It's the fact that we're talking about Tom Brady decided to come out of retirement to come play for Tampa Bay again. And for no other reason else than to add to his litany list of accolades that he has accumulated over his career, add another ring to his hand. And this is the type of product that they're putting out on the field right now. They're 3-4 right now, boys. Tom Brady and the boys down in Tampa are 3-4. They ain't beating many people. They're struggling to find some wins right now. And I'll tell you what it is, I think you just got a lot of washed up product down in Tampa right now. Tom Brady's going to be good because of who he is, the type of mindset that he has, the amount of work ethic that he puts into this game, and it's why he's been able to stick around for this long. But you also got Julio Jones that's been riddled with injuries for the last 3 years, pretty much of his career. Leonard Fournette's just kind of we talked on this show before about how running backs take a lot of load in college, and it kind of starts to impact their career trajectory in the NFL. I think Leonard Fournette is starting to become a little bit of that. He carried the ball a lot at LSU, and that might be kind of catching up to him at this point. I don't know that we have prime Leonard Fournette on our hands anymore. The offensive line has been kind of shoddy this season. And then also on the defensive side, you got probably like an average product over there. That's not how Tom Brady has won in the history of the NFL. He's had a lot of good defenses up in New England. He had a pretty good defense when he won it with Tampa Bay as well. So I'm here to say that it may have been a mistake for Tom Brady to come out of retirement and play with this product right now. Think about where he is in his career. You're playing with these boys. I think it was a mistake, and today showed that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question of talent. To your point, I don't know if it's a question of talent. I think it's a question of focus and preparation and those types of things. In our group chat today, one of the things I was talking about was it's got to be almost exhausting to play with Tom Brady because he only eats the right things. He only prepares the right way. It's football all the time, and it's perfection of football all the time. And most of us humans are not wired that way to be perfect all the time and to be, football centric all the time. I love the NFL. I love football in general. I could not talk football all day with you guys every single day. There's no possible way, not into the level of detail that man wants to have a conversation. So to your point, I don't think he should have came back this year because I don't think the guys that he's playing with love football as much as he does. I think they're exhausted. And moreover, I think they're exhausted of Tom Brady.
Yeah, I could see that. Tom Brady is definitely a very, very focused individual, and I'm sure he's extremely difficult to play with because he is he's one of the greatest to ever play the game at quarterback, and that he's got the rings to show for it. He's got his resume is very much stacked, and he's put everything together. So he goes in there and expects perfection from every single player, and he has a different type of mindset, like you were pointing out, than everybody else does. So I'm sure he is probably pretty tough to be around in that aspect of it. But yeah, I think Jonathan's right. I think it's sometimes you get players that stick around too long, and it doesn't always they start to just come down a little bit because his performance alone. his performance alone is still not at the level that we've seen him play at, plus the other issues with his team, like we kind of talked about as well. But he specifically is declining in his abilities. And he's 44 years old, is he not? Like, I mean, the dude is, like, he's going to get, he's not going to be able to compete at the same level for much longer. And I think it's starting to show this year. It's one of those stories of like, man, you should have just retired when you had a Super Bowl ring and you could go out like that and just be done. And you did retire. I definitely think he should have stayed in retirement.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and also another talking point, PJ Walker was Carolina's quarterback today. It wasn't even Baker Mayfield. PJ Walker was the guy that was under center for Carolina.
XFL quarterback.
And he didn't put up big numbers. I mean, he went 16 for 22 and 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, like, he didn't light it up against the Buccaneers by any means. But yeah, Tom Brady, maybe you should have just strapped on the New Balances, brother, cut some grass, man the grill, make some poor dad jokes while standing by the grill, and just went and lived your life, brother. Maybe that's what the decision should have been instead of going back into football.
There's another game that caught my eye. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, but the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, obviously it's going to be a big game because the Ravens used to be the Browns, for those who don't know that. And the reason I was interested in this game is because Cleveland just finds new ways to lose. Like the Atlanta Falcons for years have found ways to rip our hearts out. The Georgia Bulldogs had found ways to crush our soul. The Atlanta Braves destroyed our family tree. The Atlanta sports franchises, they were epic. But I have a good friend who's a Cleveland Browns fan, and he said being a Browns fan is worse than any other sport. And I'm like, you're so wrong. You don't know what it's like to be an Atlanta sports fan. But we've won some games here recently. We're feeling good about ourselves. I texted him today. I was like, you know what? You're right. You guys are creative. You guys, it's not like they're blowing massive leads. They find creative ways to win. It was actually a really good, really compelling game. It wasn't on our thing, so I had to watch it on Red Zone. So I didn't get to watch every single play, but it was a back and forth game. Cleveland went up 10-3. The one thing that I noticed late in this game is that the Ravens don't have a run game to salt away a game. And they arguably have the greatest kicker to ever play in the history of the NFL. And I know that we're prone to hyperbole, especially on this show, just, for laughs, giggles and stuff. But I think you can make a compelling argument that Justin Tucker is by far the best kicker we've ever had. But Cleveland scores late, and Kareem Hunt gets a touchdown, makes it 23-20. Like I said, the Ravens don't have the running game to salt that game away, boys. And the Browns get the ball back, and they're driving down the field. They make a completion, and the receiver fumbles it. That's how the game ends. They had a chance to go down. They were in field goal range, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I want to say they're at least on the fringe of field goal position, and the guy fumbles the ball. Extremely exciting game. I think I've slowly becoming a Browns fan because I like Nick Chubb so much. But that is a sneaky good team that might be dangerous once Deshaun gets back. I'm not 100% sure. Jonathan, you got something to say?
Is it really going to be that different, though? Look, how long has Deshaun Watson been not playing football? He has not been in the game for a long time now. And so I find it hard to believe that they're just going to plug him in when the time comes, when and if he is allowed to come back in and play, and that everything's just going to –
Are you projecting or predicting a Colin Kaepernick type situation with
I'm not
Deshaun
saying that.
Watson?
I'm not going to say that this man's going to get washed out of the league and nobody's going to pick him up. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, I don't know that I'm clinging on to this Deshaun Watson faith that he's going to come in and he's going to be the game changer, and that Jacoby Brissett was just kind of supposed to keep us afloat until it was time for him to come in. That's a long time to be away from football. That's a long time to be without any type of game action. So I think even when he does come back, it's going to take some time to come back in and shake some things around. So, and the fact that I found it so interesting that you said that the Ravens don't have a run game to put the game away, because we talked about how Lamar Jackson is obviously the only quarterback that should be toting the ball like 20 times a game. And so with him having him in the backfield, and you can't find any type of running game with him, or even or like J.K. Dobbins or anybody else, or Gus Edwards, whoever else, like, well, that's
Dobbins
an issue.
Dobbins is not playing. That's the issue. That's the issue. But they do have Kenyon Drake They have Kenyon Drake, and they still have
Don't
like
get me started.
some running game. No. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's incredible. I'm just saying.
No,
my point is that
I picked him up
they
for
have
fantasy
running backs.
football, and he shits the bed.
Dan,
Listen,
we know about your fantasy football woes, brother. All right. Look, this is the type of content that we need to start putting out. We need to find out who Dan's picking up and who Dan is trading and who Dan wants and who he's playing. And that should tell everybody else that's who you need to do the opposite of what Dan does.
100%.
It don't work, fam. And who is he playing against? Because if he's playing against somebody, you need to go pick him up on waiver wires if he's ready.
Listen,
because
you say that
he's
but
going to
I'm
pop
pretty
off for
sure-
25 points.
I'm pretty sure that in our group chat, I heard that Dan offered you a trade in fantasy football. So you might want to take that. I don't know if you've taken it yet or what, but
Look,
go ahead.
brother,
Oh, he
I can't
declined
take
it,
that
bro.
trade.
I can't be
Ooh.
shipping off my first overall pick this early.
Okay,
in the
for
season, man.
a first overall pick, it was Alvin Kamara and I was going to give you Drake
And?
London. I think it was for Jonathan Taylor, who ain't doing jack squat, by the way.
He had a pretty solid day today. I think the bigger issue, and we can talk about this later. We don't have to talk about this too much on the show. Is that Brooks Austin is winning our league right now, and that man hasn't checked the app since it started. He has
You're
the
not
most
lying.
points in the league.
Oh,
He has the
He
best record
auto-drafted.
in the league. He auto drafted, and this man is in first
And
place. in the league.
Jonathan had to tell him who was on his team.
Yeah,
they auto drafted Lamar Jackson in the first round for this man, and the rest of the lineup is just what, and he's still waxing everybody.
I told him, I said, your team's popping off. He said, who's on my team? I mean, that's the bigger problem. Dan, we can talk about yours later, but I think that's a bigger issue. We need to start unifying ourselves because we can't be letting that happen. All right. That's a bigger issue though.
Are you saying
Just
that there should be
stack
some
whatever team is
collusion
playing
in
Brooks
this
every
league
week.
so we
I
can
mean,
take Brooks out?
look,
Is that what you just said?
I'm not
live
saying
on
crook the
air?
game or anything like that, but that can't be.
I'm just asking. But no.
But look,
so to go back to the point that you were just making too about Deshaun Watson, to get back on topic here, Jacoby Brissett's not playing terrible. So that's why I agree with you when I say that, like, come week 11, because also it's 11. He's out for 11 weeks. So he'll only get to play 6 games at the end of the season. I don't know if that 6-game stretch is going to be enough to really fix something, or if he's going to bring that much of a difference to the game than Jacoby Brissett, who's not playing bad right now. He's not turning the ball over. He didn't have any touchdown passes today, but
Stoddard.
it really is.
That's
The backup
what it
quarterbacks
is.
have actually had some pretty good games, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit when we get to the Seahawks, because Geno Smith is absolutely having himself a season and just killing it. We kind of mentioned it before, but we'll get to that again in a few minutes. My game of the day that I was watching real close was Packers and the Commanders, 23-21, and Aaron Rodgers was just struggling, to say the least.
And Carson
his
Wentz
team-
didn't play.
Carson Wentz did not play. Who was the quarterback? I can't even remember the dude's
Taylor
name.
Heinicke.
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor
Heineke.
Heinicke. Yeah.
Taylor Heineke. He played the game, and he threw for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So it wasn't even like he lit it up or had a crazy game or anything like that. But he still pretty much outperformed Aaron Rodgers, who had 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions on
I
there.
told you today, it might as well be us three out there running routes for the Packers. They got a bunch of young dudes out there. They don't have any experience. I'm telling you, and Aaron Rodgers would still find a way to get us the ball and put up some solid numbers with us three running around the field like our heads were cut off. But so I think that's the biggest issue for the Packers right now. It obviously something is lacking offensively, and that does not happen with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. We have never seen something like this really with Aaron. I mean, the guy's won 4 MVPs, and he won 2 back-to-back as well. I understand that he
2020 and 2021, and then we get to 2022, and I take him in fantasy football, and it just
look,
complete
fellas, I
opposite.
understand.
Just
Y'all are
killing
some
me.
bad
Just
GMs
killing
in
me.
fantasy football.
Fade
But
the father.
The dude
But,
won 2 straight MVPs, and I finally get him, and I got him in like the 4th round or whatever it was, and it wasn't
your
it.
personnel,
It wasn't
brother.
it. Listen,
but I understand
I'm
that
just
he
saying.
had Devontae Adams for a few years there, and but also he had Jordy Nelson as his prime wide receiver as well. He had Randall Cobb, who back in his prime was pretty solid as well. So it's not like
still got
he's had
Randall
these
Cobb.
Julio Jones, Megatrons, or like a Randy Moss type dude running around the field all the time throughout his career. He's been a great quarterback, but this year we have not seen that from him. And
So that's the
that's
point,
really
right?
concerning.
So you and I talked about that. We were texting about this, and we kind of got into that point of who's he throwing to, and you made that joke about, I mean, we could literally be running routes for him, but he's done this consistently in his career outside of like he did have Davante Adams for the past couple of years. And yeah, he won an MVP 2 straight years with Davante Adams. My point being was if he went MVP 2 straight years and then Davante Adams leaves and he has this big of a drop off, then it makes it like he's not the same player that we're used to seeing. And he's getting a little older in his career, and he's talked about going on and doing different things. And I'm sure he's thought about retirement at this point in his life as well. Not saying that he necessarily needs to do that right now, but that's got to be a thought process at some point in time. And he's just not the same caliber player this season. And I don't know what it is. Is it because he doesn't feel like he has at least one really good guy to throw to?
It was the Barstool interview.
And then he can just the Barstool interview,
the offseason Barstool interview that he did this season. That's what it is. That's got to be it, right? Just wasn't in the right mindset. You know, went on there, talked a bunch of stuff about some nonsense. Aaron Rodgers made some people laugh. Like, I don't know. Blame it on Barstool. You know, when in doubt, blame it on those guys. I guess at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other biggest storyline of today is injuries, guys. Injuries are hitting some primetime players. You know, J.K. Dobbins, we just mentioned that not having the ability to put people away. You've got some running backs out. You've got what's his face? Oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. The quarterback that went down, Tannehill, who you guys are not a big fan of, but the guy just wins. Tannehill goes down with an injury. You've got
he came back though. By the way, I don't know if you saw, he did come back in that game.
He did come back.
Yeah, he came back, and then after coming back, it was a weird thing. Sorry to cut you off on this. It was a weird thing. They kept Malik out there for a play, so they had two quarterbacks out there, and they tried to run like this jet sweep to Malik or something like that, and then they fumbled the exchange, which ended up being a pretty big turnover for him as well, with Tannehill back in the game after that.
DK Metcalf, one of the best wide receivers in football, goes down. Breece Hall, who has burst onto the scene and has 4 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown early in the first quarter, goes down with I thought it was a head injury, but they came out and said it was a knee injury. You had some linemen going down today. We've had some defensive players go down. AJ Terrell went down with a hamstring injury today. My question to you guys, and there's no way to definitively answer this because I'm sure injuries are significant every single year, but does it feel like these guys are getting so big, so fast, so strong that everybody's getting hurt now and way more than in the past? Because it just feels that way. That may not be true. It just feels that way. What about you boys?
I mean, man, it's the NFL. You're surrounded by professionals. Just watch any NFL game all the way through, all 4 quarters. Every single hit that those guys take is violent. I mean, it is guys at their peak physique levels, every single one of them, because this is what they're paid to do now. You know, they're professionals. That's what they train for all year round. I mean, I know that college athletes do that, but again, it's professionals. All of these guys are really good at what they do. So yeah, it's a really physical game for a reason. And yeah, this year it does seem like that injuries, there's been a higher number of injuries this season than there has every year. But I also feel like we say that every single season. Like, man, there's a bunch of injuries this year. I don't feel like last year we had this many injuries. But yeah, this year it seems like there is quite a few more, especially with the quarterbacks this year. We talked about that as well. It seems like I feel like I get a text from Stoddard every single Sunday that there were 4 quarterbacks that were taken out of the game due to injuries, and now someone's 4th string quarterback is in the game. Like, that's how I feel like every weekend of NFL games this year has gone.
I'll say that. I think that's the truth. I think the quarterback injuries this season are higher than I am used to seeing. I say that for sure. I don't know what the issue is or how it is. Maybe the quarterbacks are just getting more physical and they're getting into it. Although some of the injuries, like Tua, has not been like because he was rushing the ball. He got hit in the pocket and it caused the injuries, all that kind of stuff. That's happened. And that's happened to a few people. But some of these quarterbacks are a lot more athletic and more aggressive with the football in their hands. So they sometimes get themselves in positions to get hit and end up getting hurt and stuff like that. I think that plays a factor to that. But as far as the overall injuries in the NFL, I don't think there's more overall than normal, or than there has been at least over the past couple of seasons. I think the reason you're seeing more injuries in general over the past few seasons is the speed and the athleticism of these guys is always increasing. So they're a lot more physical with each other. They're hitting harder. They're running faster. And when you do all of that, that's going to cause players to take more injuries because they can sit there and they can work out and they can do all this stuff to try to make themselves stronger and more durable. But at the end of the day, when you get hit in the knees by a guy that weighs 300 pounds running 15 to 20 miles an hour, I don't care who you are, you're subject to injury on that. Like that's just a very,
Jordan
very
Davis.
real possibility. Exactly. Jordan Davis is 350 running 20. No, he's 360 running 20 miles an hour, whatever it is, and out here just like killing people. That's a defensive lineman. And you got guys like, the linebackers and your safeties coming downhill. Jamal Adams is known to be one of like the most physical safeties in the game. Just comes downhill full speed and just hits people as hard as he can. And he helps in the run game so much. Like that's what the game is now. And it's injuries everywhere.
That's what gave the Legion of Boom their name back in the day with the Seahawks when you had
him
Richard
and Bobby
Sherman,
Wagner,
Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, all those guys on that defense. It's because they were smoking dudes on the dome, man. They were taking them out every single play. They were just laying the hammer. They had no remorse for their own life or anybody else's on that field. And I know that they're putting in rules to try and protect players, but at the end of the day, football is going to be football. It's going to be physical, and people are going to come away hurt. And that's just how the sport is. And that's a big reason why people love it so much.
Well, then on the flip side of those injuries, you got two quarterbacks coming back today that haven't been playing for a while. Dak Prescott took the reins back over with the Cowboys and actually had a pretty good game, guys. I mean, 19 of 25. I mean, that's pretty accurate. Didn't throw for a ton of yards, 207 yards. Threw a touchdown, no picks, and they got the win. I'm sure Harry is excited about that. But they got the win, and he had a pretty good day back, right? But the one that everybody's got circled, right? The one that everybody's got circled is the nightcap, and we can get into it in detail as far as game-wise if you want to later. But Tua coming back. Yeah, there's so many people out there saying that guy should not be coming back this year. He needs to take the rest of the year off to let that brain heal. But he's been cleared by somebody. So, we talk about
sat for a few weeks and he's been cleared. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but at some point he's not going to sit out the whole year. He'll clear concussion protocol like he did. Like he's going to play again this year. And I just really hope for the Dolphins' sake as an organization that Tua is 100% okay right now, because if he comes back in this game and something happens, like if he takes another hit and it ends his career or something like that, because he's head injuries like this, guys, how serious they are. And if something happens again, he could be one hit away from his career being over because he cannot come back at that point. So for the Dolphins' sake, I genuinely hope that guy is where he needs to be able to take, like we said, you got Jordan Davis is out there running 20 miles an hour at the guy, 350 pounds like that. That's going to happen. He's going to be out there with that. He's going to take some hits. His head's going to hit the ground again. So I hope they have something designed up for him to really kind of protect him and ease him back into it tonight. That's what I hope I see.
In other words, if you play offensive line for the Dolphins, your job is on the line tonight.
So what I was going to say is I was listening to 92.9 The Game, and I don't ever listen to that radio station. So it was just ironic that I was at that particular time. And they had one of the guys, he's one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, and they got him to come on, and you could tell he's not a big football fan. He could barely understand like who these people were, but he is a brain doctor, and he was talking about head injuries, specifically sports head injuries. And, he was getting rid of some of the misnomers or like the urban legends about head injuries. And this is something that I've always been told. And I was hoping that Jeremiah said it, and he didn't say it. But one of the things that I've always heard is once you get a concussion, you're more likely to get another one. And this brain doctor said, that's like saying if you cut your finger, you're more likely to cut it again. He's like, that's not true at all. Once it heals, it heals. You're not more likely to get it. He said, now, if you are not healed from a brain injury, then it could be more significant. That part is true. But he said, if you are completely healed, you are at no more of a risk than anybody else of sustaining another one or doing any type of damage to your head. He said, if you're able to recover from your concussion and not have any significant injury, long-lasting injuries from that head injury, you're 100% recovered. You're 100% recovered, and that's it. So I think that made me feel a little bit better, just a little bit better about the whole Tua situation, because if you have neurologists now, and I think they are beyond team doctors at this point with Tua, I think if you have neurologists saying that he's 100% healthy and healed from his concussion, then as this leading doctor said, he is no more likely to get a concussion than anybody else playing football.
And that's why I say that I hope for their sake that he is in fact 100% healthy then, because otherwise it could be really, really bad for the organization and him specifically, obviously. And at the end of the day, I know you guys think the way I do. It's about protecting that player, man, like and keeping that from being something
from himself.
Yeah, exactly. Because as a competitor, we talked about this. We've all played sports and everything like that. Every single one of us has probably played with some type of injury and just said, we'll be good. Don't worry about it. We're going to keep fighting through it and keep going. These guys get paid millions of dollars to do that, and they're expected to perform at a very high level. So he is definitely going to try to insert himself back into that game as soon as possible that he can. So it takes somebody else to kind of pull him back. You know how like Kirby, we always talk about Kirby's got his get back guy. It's always that pulling his belt on the sideline, making him stay off the field and stuff. He needs somebody doing that and keeping him from getting in trouble and getting himself into a dangerous situation. So I do really hope for his sake that he is 100% healthy and for everybody involved on that part of it. But yeah, like Jonathan said, that offensive line has a tall task today, and it just do not let him take shots.
I mean, I know we talk about it happening in the game, but let's be real. I mean, it could happen anywhere. There was a Falcons player, I believe it's Tevin Coleman, actually, who a few years ago got a concussion from slipping in the shower. So, like, these things can happen outside of the football field as well. So in general, you just got to be careful. But if he is 100% healthy, especially after hearing what Dan brought the knowledge to us, he learned us something today about concussions.
I learned it.
He learned it and he brought it to us, and we learned it as well. So
yeah,
if that
Dr.
is
J.
true,
Will, but we had Dr. Dan today.
Yeah, we always get a little doctor's antidote regardless. So if he is 100% healthy, if he's 100% good to go, then no worries then. If that's the case, and I'm sure that is the case at this point, because you can't bring any more heat to your side of this and risk not only your team, but also a player's future as well in regards to safety issues. So I'm sure that Tua is 100% ready to go. And we'll see, because when Tua was healthy and he was right, we were talking about the Dolphins being one of the best teams in the NFL. So we'll see if they can get back on track to that tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, and we'll talk about that. Yeah, that'll be a good one to talk about for sure. But real quick, before we jump over this, because you mentioned Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, I want to talk about that game for a second as well. I think it's kind of funny. Like last week, we saw Cooper Rush finally have a bad game, right? Like he finally had a genuinely bad game and threw 3 interceptions, didn't throw for 200 yards. I don't remember what his final stat line was, but I know he threw 3 interceptions, really kind of pulled them out of that game. And all of a sudden this week, Dak's hand's ready to go.
Oh, it was ready last week. He said it was ready last week.
That is my point. That it is one of those things where it's like they're going to nurse that injury until the person decides, or has a bad day or something, and they're like, all right, it's time to make the switch. But they weren't going to make that switch until they saw Cooper Rush.
Well, ride the hot hand, man. At that point, like not only do you want Dak healthy, you want him. It's just like with Tua. You want him to be 100%. Was Dak 100% last week? We don't know that he was for sure, but give him another week. See if he can feel even more comfortable than he already was. Cooper Rush was the hot hand at the time, so why not just roll him out there again? He's been producing for you at that point, and just ride him out until he gets cold again, and then you're ready to go with Dak already. So I think it's also one of those types of things. Like if he's hot, keep him in there. But then when he strikes cold, all right, back to business. We're with Dak.
Yeah. The other thing is we don't even know if Dak Prescott's 100% right now. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so you never really know. And I think also if you look at it strategically, right, Cooper had a bad game. There's no way to foresee that was going to happen, right? I think that was purely coincidental. I do believe the fact that the Lions
were Darius Slayton is what it was. Darius Slayton just absolutely was a nightmare for him on defense.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, moreover, for Dak, just the Dak angle, is they're playing the Lions today. That's an easy mark. It is a game where you're not going to throw him into the fire where he has to be at his highest level to be able to win that football game.
I saw something today about that, actually. I saw something about that today, actually, where they said somebody said that this was like his choice of game to come back kind of thing, or like this is when he wanted to come back kind of thing. And I don't know that that's true as much as like you're saying. Maybe the organization said it's a good game to put him back in or keep him out of the Eagles because that's being such a big game. playing against the
The
Eagles.
Lions are the FCS of the NFL is what I'm hearing right now.
Well, the Lions up to today had the worst scoring defense in the league. I think they were allowing 35 points a game. And that's why earlier in the day I text both of y'all and I was like, are we going to talk about how the Lions have the worst scoring defense in the league? And I think it was like halftime almost. I'll have to look at the box score again. It was like almost halftime or something, and Dallas only had like 3 or 6 points. And I was like, this isn't looking so good.
It was 6-3 Lions.
Okay, at halftime, yeah. And that was pretty rough. It was a rough start for him.
It's got to be so frustrating for Lions fans because the team has been trying to beef up that defense. You know, they took Aiden Hutchinson this last year in the draft. They took Jeff Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State, either the previous year or the year before that. And like it just hasn't been producing yet. You know, those draft picks have not been hitting the way that they thought they would, at least especially for Okudah at this point. You know, he's not the first, or he's not the first round draft pick that everybody kind of thought he would be, at least at that ceiling at this point in his career. He's not turned into that. So they're trying. And that's got to be so frustrating. It's like, you can't even hate on the franchise for not putting an emphasis on the defense. They're putting effort. It's just not panning out.
You know, the one thing I would question is what happened to the Lions? Because through the first 4 games, they were the only team in the NFL. And there was some other silly stat that went to it. And it was something like maybe like since the merger or something, but they were like the first team to score in every single quarter in the first 4 games of the season. This never happened before. And they were scoring. They were losing football games. Don't get me wrong. They weren't winning.
But they were scoring
but
points.
They were scoring a ton of points. And listen, we know the Cowboys defense is good. We give our little buddy a lot of crap about the Cowboys just because it's fun to do. But we all acknowledge that they are a very good defense. But what is to your point, Jonathan? They are trying so hard to make this a good football team, and they've had some really darn good players in Dallas or in Detroit. What I don't know at this point. I don't know how you fix it. Kind of like with the Falcons defense. The Falcons defense has always been boo-boo, always, and we thought they were going to be good now, and they're starting to revert a little bit, and maybe the Bengals had more to do with that.
They had some key injuries, like you said. Missing AJ Terrell, that's tough. You know, you're missing your number one quarterback.
Those wide receivers,
that's a
those
tough
wide receivers
one.
tore us up today.
You got Jamar Chase on the field. You got Boyd on the field. Yeah, that's a tough matchup for your secondary already.
They've got a lot of guys.
Higgins as well. Yeah, you're deep there in Cincinnati. So they've had some injuries. But prior to the day, the Falcons' defense has actually looked pretty solid. You know, they're not up there at the top of the league by any means, but all we've ever wanted in Atlanta is like, just give us a middle of the pack defense, you know, be around that 15, 16, 17 range, you know, right in there. That's a good sweet spot for your team because especially with an offensive minded head coach like Arthur Smith, you're going to get the offense rolling. Now, unfortunately, you have Marcus Mariota playing quarterback for you right now. That's kind of holding you back a little bit, but you get on the middle of the pack defense. I think Dean Pease is doing good things with that defense. It's just right now you kind of hit the injury bug and it's showing up on the football field.
Well, today definitely was a big one when you lose your starting cornerback, you know, AJ Terrell, your guy that's like an all-pro type player, and then you get guys, let me look because I want to get this right. I think they had 2 guys over 130 yards today receiving. Yeah, Tyler Boyd had 155 yards.
Boyd had over 100 in the first quarter.
Yeah. He had 8 catches, 155 yards, and Chase had 130 yards. T. Higgins had 93 yards. You want to know? I mean, but here's the thing: you put AJ Terrell out there. Do you still even? You can't slow that down. One guy can cover one guy. Yeah,
it's just
you need somebody else.
You might be able to slow down.
You're also missing Cam Hayward though as well, I believe.
Yeah, Cam Hayward's out for the season, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the secondary has taken a hit this year, and that was a position you weren't exactly deep at either. So it's unfortunate for the Falcons.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not – so Mariota 8 of 13, 124 against the Bengals defense is not good, boys. They're not good. Now, granted, he's throwing touchdown passes to Damari Bird. I have no idea who the hell that guy is. I honest to God, hand to the Bible, no clue who that guy is. But apparently he caught a 75-yard touchdown today, so good for him. Zacchaeus, I mean, listen, we got a lot of guys that are nobodies basically, but are putting up production.
Bird is out of South Carolina, by the way.
I cannot lay this at the feet of Marcus Mariota entirely, right? But I think we kind of understand where our lot in life is at this point. Is it worth a shot to give Ritter a shot here, or are we just way too
He'll
early
get his
for that?
chance. I mean, yeah, he's going to get his
this
chance.
goes back to it goes back to what we talked about, though. It goes back to what we've talked about a week or two ago. You don't make that change unless you think that your season is going to have collapsed at this point, because you go with what you know when you're winning games, right? The problem today was the Falcons scored 17 in the first half. They actually started coming back. They were getting boat raced. It started by like a 21-point deficit to start the game, and then all of a sudden, going into halftime, they ended up getting it down to an 11-point game. It was 28 to 17. The problem is you don't score in the second half. You got to put points up on the board in the second half. The Bengals scored one touchdown in the second half. You scored no points. You had your chance to potentially come back on that, and it just didn't work.
Now,
you got to put points on the board.
Let me say this, though. We just talked about with the Dak situation about, he had his perfect game against Detroit today for him to come back. You could arguably apply the same thing to letting Desmond Ridder get in the game, because the Falcons' upcoming opponents, you got the Panthers, the Chargers, the Panthers, the Bears, the Commanders, and the Steelers. All right, yeah, you play the Chargers. That's a top-tier NFL team right now.
Outside
of that, this is your window of opportunity right now. If you want to get Desmond Ridder some snaps this season, if that is what Atlanta intends to do with him, if they want him to get some game time this year, it's your window of opportunity right now. You got Carolina twice, the Chicago Bears, and the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up.
Commanders.
And the Commanders. Like, this is your time. Yeah. So if he is going to play this season, I think it's going to happen now. If this is the type of situation that we're applying it to, where like if there's a perfect game, if there's a game you have circled on the schedule where if Marcus Mariota is not producing for us, we have this game circled right here, whether it be the Commanders or the Bears or whoever else on this schedule, then it's going to happen in the near future, I believe. That's when Desmond Ridder is going to get his shot, I think, because you're not baptizing him with fire necessarily, and you're giving him a legitimate option.
And you have to be able to see if this guy can play. I mean, because if you're going to have a high draft pick, then you're either going to take an offensive or defensive player, who knows. But if you're going to take a quarterback, you have to know if you have the talent on the roster, because you can't afford to waste a pick if you have a guy, right? So the other part of that is my pipe dream. Apparently, it's my pipe dream of Lamar Jackson coming to Atlanta, right? I mean, listen, that is not crazy. That's not crazy talk. I think it's very reasonable. They're going to have the cap room to do it. Atlanta loves playmakers, and Atlanta is an event city. Well, if you give them a reason to come home, to get out of the house and go watch somebody, they 100% will. So if we're taking a quarterback in the first round, we got to know if we have one on the roster or not. So
exactly.
Desmond has to play in the game. And you can't – listen, that bull crap of letting him play the last 2 or 3 games of the season, that's not it, boys. Because at the end of the year, a lot of people are either dinged up or they're resting for the playoffs. That ain't it. So I want to see Desmond Ridder playing a game that matters.
Yeah,
that matters.
I'm 100% with you on that, Dan, especially considering with who you got coming up in the draft as well. You got to figure out if you hit on this draft pick. You got to figure it out if what you have in Ridder, because you got guys like Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, some really other good quarterbacks looming on into the draft. Hendon Hooker's looming into that as well. Maybe Will Levis as well. So if you got to figure out what you have in Ridder now, because if you want to go the Lamar Jackson route, or you want to know if you should take a shot on Bryce Young or somebody else in this upcoming class, you got to figure it out this season. So I think they will. I think they're going to give the young guy his shot. And it's also the scenario of, look, if he pans out, he pans out. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, you got options at this point. So it almost wouldn't even be considered a wasted draft pick, because you're going to be set up in a good position regardless for your future at quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's hard for them to decide to try to make that move in the middle of the season that we're currently at, sitting at 3-4. And like we said, the first few games, today just wasn't your day. You lost this game. It is what it is. But the other 3 losses prior to today, you could have won all 3 of those games. And so I think that's where the difficulty comes in of making that move and trying to make that jump. Another thing that, we talked about with like the Falcons running game hasn't been as good as it has, it could be in different times, but it has been fairly good over the past couple of weeks. Today, I think they kind of struggled a little bit on that side of the ball, and it just didn't really get you going to kind of help Mariota where he needed it in that side. And just overall was not a good offensive performance for the Falcons. A guy I do want to talk about in the running game in general across the league, though, something that's worth talking about is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was traded Thursday night. At the end of during the Thursday night football, he was traded. and then he gets on a plane from Charlotte to San Francisco, and he requested to his agent or something to have a playbook given to him, so like on for the flight. So he got the playbook for San Francisco, and then he proceeds to, I guess, study as much as possible. And it's a couple of 4-hour flight, 5-hour flight, whatever it would be, from Charlotte to San Francisco. So he had some time to study it there. But in 3 days' time, so from Thursday night to Sunday, he played today. He was on the field a ton for San Francisco, and he had over 60 yards of total offense today. That's insane, guys. That's next level. I don't know about y'all, but that takes a lot up here to be able to jump in and just know what to do and be able to produce like that.
I mean, the dude went to Stanford, brother. He's a nerd at heart. He's built like that. He's built to put it up, like load his brain with a bunch of information in a short amount of time. And yeah, he's going to produce at that level. Yeah, you don't go to Stanford because you ain't smart in the head. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey is made for those types of situations.
Y'all excuse our boy Jay Will today too. He kind of sounds like a chain smoker. He just put away a few packs of cigarettes this week, and today before the show. So
yeah, you know me. I just be lighting them up any chance I get. Smoke breaks, yes, please.
So, the important thing to note though is that he's a running back, right? Running back is one of the most instinctual positions on the football field. It's more about instincts than it is X's and O's. Hand the guy the ball, let him follow the block. I mean, listen, the rear end of a human wearing Carolina colors or San Francisco colors, it doesn't matter, right? You're just following that butt and trying to get down the field. And he's a running back. So all he really needs to know is go left, go right, right?
Chasing tail, baby.
Yeah, chasing tail, baby. Right and left. It don't matter. But so listen, it's one of those.
See the button run to it.
Where there's not a whole lot of formation things to worry about. It's line up behind the quarterback and run. Okay, so he did have that advantage. I think it would have been very difficult if you were like, say, a right guard, right? On the offense. I think that'd be too much. Now, defensive players also, I think the closer you are to the ball, I think you got to be pretty smart, right? But like when you get out there, like if you got a guy playing safety, I mean, I understand there's some coverage stuff like that, but a lot of that is instincts, right? In corner, if you're going to be a lockdown corner, we're going to run man, right? It's instinctual. So I think the position that he plays is really important, but nonetheless, it's extremely, extremely impressive that this man can make that flight, first of all. Okay, so think about if you've ever made a flight, how tired you are the next day. So that next day being Saturday. Now, I understand this guy is a 1%er, right? And super healthy and all that stuff. But, yes, to your point, Jeremiah, I was extremely impressed that that man could play as much as he did today and have success. He only had 38 yards, so it's not like he lit the world on fire. He didn't have 138 yards.
Combined, he had like 62 yards, I think, of total offense with the receptions and stuff as well. But my point being is just being able to put that much up in your first day after only having a couple of days to even get into it.
Basically a day.
Yeah. But the thing is I've seen running backs get traded in years past, and they might get 3 touches or they don't, and like 3 snaps. The difference was he was out there consistently. Every time I was watching Red Zone and was flipping through a bunch of the games and stuff. Every time they showed them, I saw him in the backfield like 80% of the time. He was out there a lot trying to help out, and you don't see that very often. Even at running back positions, most of the time they try to ease you in. He kind of got thrown in there a lot more. That just shows you how much confidence they had in his ability, like you said, to just be instinctual, because at the end of the day, it comes down to your instincts, because that playbook is not absorbed yet. It's just not. There's no way.
Well, I know that we got to hype up this game tonight, but I did want to take just 1 second. If you allow me 1 second. The NBA has begun. I am a big NBA fan, and our Hawks are not going to go 82-0. I thought we had a really good shot at it, but, we had to mess around, lost to Charlotte tonight. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for this Hawks basketball season, and I hope that there are at least a couple NBA fans who watch our show, because Jay Will and I are going to slide in some NBA talk, much to the chagrin of my guy Scott Stoddard. But we're going to get you some Hawks coverage. And DeJounte Murray looked hella good next to Trae Young in the first game. Hawks. So all them haters that said you can't have those two in the same backcourt, I say, watch game 1, boys, because they were on it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
You know I'm all about some basketball talk, but Stoddard's about to be like me in Spanish class for 3 years in high school. Like he kind of knows what the conversation is about for the most part. He has absolutely no clue what is going on. He's just going to be like, yes, that
Not
is very
near
good.
to the level
Yes.
that you guys can. I told y'all that ahead of time. I said y'all gonna have to carry those conversations. I'll contribute.
Oh, 3-pointers. I know that one. Call on me, teacher. Call on me, teacher. Let me answer that one. Yeah, we'll definitely be covering some basketball, but we got to go ahead.
And we will, once we have some more content with the Hawks, we will definitely give you some Hawks talk. I know I will. Jonathan, who's your squad's the Hawks, right?
Oh yeah, it's the Hawks, baby. Okay. Look, you see the backdrop. I mean, it's Atlanta. I'm a hometowner when it comes to professional sports.
Now that we took that detour, Jeremiah, if you want to get us to the game of the night, sir.
All right, let's jump into it. We kind of talked about this a second ago with Tua. Game of the night tonight is Miami and Pittsburgh, 8:20. Miami is favored by 7.5. Tua's back in the game. Jonathan, how you feeling about that game?
Yeah, I think I'm going to roll with the Dolphins on this one. They're like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have looked, even without Tua, they've still looked pretty solid for the Dolphins. Their offense is really starting to click. Raheem Mostert as well at running back for them is starting to kind of get into a groove as well. So when you got all of those elements hitting, you get your starting quarterback back as well. And against the Pittsburgh Steelers team that's still trying to kind of figure things out with some of their young core like George Pickens and Kenny Pickett and things of that nature. Yeah, I'm going to take the more experienced team in this scenario and go with the Miami Dolphins.
You know, sometimes I don't think people realize how big of a 7.5 line is in the NFL. That is a massive line. And I think it gets glossed over because in college you routinely see 30, 40-point lines and you don't blink at it. How many times have we watched Brooks say Georgia's, 30-point favorite here and they're going to impound those points, boys, because they're going to cover that. Right, 7.5 in an NFL game is the equivalent of like a 38-point spread in a college game. That's massive. So when Vegas tells you this game is that far apart, then you have to go Dolphins. That means the Steelers have got no shot in this game. I think it's very beneficial that Mostert has been playing really well. It takes some of that pressure off of Tua. He's got two extremely talented wide receivers, and you got Waddle. I love that dude. I hated him in Alabama, but I love that dude now. So I'm 100% taking the Dolphins.
So I'm definitely going to take the Dolphins on this as well. I think a big thing for me is the Pittsburgh. I just don't see them being able to score enough points. I think that once again with Tua, we'll see how up to speed he is after being out for a few weeks and dealing with the stuff that he's been dealing. It's been, I'm sure, pretty mentally draining for him. But I do expect him to come out. He's an athlete, man. He's going to come out there, and I think he's going to perform. Before the season or early in the season, we were 3 weeks in. I think we were talking about Miami being potentially one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. And so I don't think that that's going to change this fast. They've obviously lost some games, but they've had a lot of adversity they've faced. They've had third, fourth string quarterbacks playing basically through a couple of these games that they've lost. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt there. I think Mitchell Trubisky is starting tonight. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, because I think Kenny Pickett got hurt last week. I don't know if he's
I ain't got no clue at this point who's starting a quarterback for anybody in the NFL.
Because Kenny Pickett got hurt last week. Yeah, I think Trubisky is starting tonight because Kenny Pickett got hurt last week, and Trubisky came in late in that game and actually led them down the field to win that game with the touchdown late in that game as well. So I think Trubisky is starting. I obviously don't have a lot of confidence in his abilities. He just hasn't shown us that while he's been in the league, wherever he's been. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. They only score about 16 points a game, so I don't expect him to start scoring a lot tonight either.
ESPN has Trubisky listed as the starter.
Okay. I was pretty sure about that, but I wasn't 100% sure. So next game on the docket, fellas, we get another interesting night game, Monday night game. You get Chicago and New England. It is another one of those. I see Jay Will shaking his head already, so go ahead and take it.
I mean, Monday night football games have not been hitting this year, and now we're getting slapped in the face with the Chicago Bears and New England. Probably gonna watch the first quarter and doze off on the couch again for this one. I don't know who to pick for this one. I guess I'll take Chicago's got some issues going on with Justin Fields and their offense. They're still trying to get things figured out. Like nothing has been really hitting for the Bears.
This is
right
important.
Now.
This makes a difference.
Mac Jones is back. Bailey Zappi is not out of Western Kentucky is not going to be the starting quarterback. So
Bailey Zappi has played pretty well in the absence, though. He has had some games.
He has. He had a solid game last week. So yeah, I'm going to be rocking with the Patriots in this one with Mac Jones coming back. Chicago just can't get things figured out on offense. I'm going to be rocking with the Pats.
That's also a 7.5 point spread actually as well, fellas.
Gone, bro.
New England. Yeah. So there you go, Dan.
All right. So my grandpa played for the Bears, so I'm picking the Bears, and that's really all I got to say.
About that. Slight flex. Okay, whatever, Dan. All right, Homer.
The Bears. You want to give us any input, any insight on the game at all, or just going to say
Justin Fields is terrible. They don't have any wide receivers. Their running game is doo-doo, but I am Bears because it's in my family. So go Bears. Go Bears.
God, this team sucks, but by God, I mean, it sounds like every Browns fan does. Oh, we suck every year, but by God, I'm going to pull for them regardless.
All right.
That's what I got. I don't know what you want from me.
Everybody's like, I don't know what you want me to say for this game, but I'm going with this team.
There you go. Well, I'm going to take kind of going back to what Dan said earlier. You get a 7.5 point spread, and I think you're at home, and New England's going to roll in this game. The Bears just you haven't seen anything out of Justin Fields yet. And I know he's a young quarterback and he's trying to get in there, but this is his second season, and it just doesn't seem like the game he's caught up to the game. And I don't know if that's, people around him and, his team that's not helping him, the way that they could as being a young quarterback and the support that he needs. He needs a good running game to kind of help him there. And he doesn't really have that right now. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take New England as well. Fellas, it has been a good episode. It is 8:21. The game is about to kick off tonight right now. The Steelers and Dolphins on NBC. So make sure you guys flip over to that game. But before we go, it is a quick announcement. There's just some changes that are coming from us on the show. You might see a little bit of different titling and different things like that. So just kind of stay tuned with us. Make sure you hit us up on social media, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and make sure you're ready when those changes do occur. But we will still be on the network here doing everything as we have been. But as always, guys, we appreciate you watching, and make sure y'all get over and watch this game tonight. This one could be a pretty good one with the Dolphins and Steelers, at least partly. So have fun. We will catch you guys next week.